I hear this all the time from people saying that, like, you don't understand, Tim, the military and the police would side with Trump in 2 seconds. It'd be the shortest civil war in history. And I'm like, have you ever actually gone to these military bases and talked to some of these people? I know some who say this have, and maybe their buddies in the military are, you know, more conservative. But I've met tons of cops who would be like, I'll just do whatever I'm told. We've seen it. 2 cops went and arrested gym owners because the Democratic governor said to. So if Trump said Directive 51 is being invoked because we're going to go to war with China and COVID, you know, destroyed this country, and then one Democratic governor instructs the National Guard or the police to do something unconstitutional or defy Trump, they'll do it. It's not about whether or not there's enough fringe leftists. It's that we're already seeing it. Kate Brown can deploy her secret police and no one cares. So that's enough.
Well, there's a difference between where we're at now and what that would mean, because, you know, there's still some semblance of order. And when what you're suggesting, when he enacts, you know, Directive 51, order would go out the window, and then suddenly they'd be like, let's go, because everyone would hear him say it. Or if not, I mean, I would assume most policemen pay attention to the news and, you know, actually watch Trump's speeches, so they would probably hear it. And they would probably be like, all right, if we're going to war. And then all of a sudden the governor calls and be like, no, don't worry about China. Worry about the feds. I have a feeling, that, again, I'm just using my own knowledge, my own assumptions of the general American public. They're going to be like, okay, we know that we're going to war. Why are we fighting each other still?
In New Jersey.
Especially when it's just a minority. Like, I know you said it. They've infiltrated everybody, this far left.
It's not even about that necessarily.
Okay.
So I was at a gun shop and I was asking, like, what do I need to know in terms of laws for, like, you know, buying the gun, bringing it home. And we got to talking and they told me a story about a woman who lived in Philadelphia. For those that aren't familiar, where we live in South Jersey, it's like very, very close to the Philly metro. It's Philly suburbs. And about an hour from Philadelphia is Atlantic City on the east coast of South New Jersey, which is basically East Coast Vegas. Like a lot of the same restaurants, a lot of the same casinos, just, you know, East Coast style. This woman lived in Philadelphia, and Pennsylvania has better gun laws. She had a concealed carry permit, and she made the mistake of not checking the laws. And she was like a new, you know, relatively new gun owner. She was driving to Atlantic City to go to the casino, and she gets pulled over. And the cop comes up to her, and he says, "How are you doing, ma'am?" And she says, because she was taught this at her school, to inform the officer that she's armed. And she said to the officer that she was concealed carrying, and he says, "Okay, ma'am, can you step out of the vehicle for me? You're under arrest, felony charge, 4-year minimum." Fortunately, I guess the NRA stepped in and got the charges dropped, and it was a big scandal. That's the story they told me. I don't know if it's true or not.
Okay.
I bring it up because the Second Amendment is clear. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This woman was legally carrying a weapon as far as Pennsylvania was concerned, and she hopped over a bridge, and all of a sudden this cop said, "I don't care about the Constitution or the laws. You're under arrest, felony charge."
I don't equate all cops to any one story about any cop. I refuse to do it. I know cops personally.
So when across
I have
the
friends
country,
that are cops.
When across the country they've been ticketing and arresting people for violating the edicts of governors that violate the Constitution, what do we call it?
They're following orders, sure, but that's not the same as if the president said, "We're about to go to war. I'm enacting this Directive 51. We got to come together so we can go against this enemy, this threat, head on together." That's not where we are right now. That's not where we've been. People are afraid of this pandemic, or what was a pandemic. You know, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Now there's riots. Now the cops are afraid to even be cops, because they're being attacked. You know, this is an unprecedented time. You know, you can't just like apply this blanket thing. Like, sure, yeah, the story of the one cop who was like, "I'm just following orders. You're arrested."
One cop?
You just told me a story about this woman in New
McCloskeys.
Jersey. Yeah, okay, exactly. I know.
And
yeah, sure. You can give me all these examples.
So how
but
can
I still personally know cops that won't do that
out of thin air?
I'm not making anything up out of thin air. What are you talking about?
How can you make up out of thin air what you believe a cop would do when all the evidence is to the contrary? And we have very little evidence of them actually standing up for the Constitution.
Because we've been talking for months about the media and what they portray and what they give us, what stories they string along and push out into the open. So, of course, we're hearing about all the bad cops. I know personally good cops that would not do that.
You're right.
I know that there's stories out there of good cops that will that are not mandating the mask. They're like, we're not going to be the mask police.
And there's the sanctuary cities in Virginia where the sheriffs were like, nope.
Right, exactly.
The point is, it will not be every cop saying, you're right, Trump, we're with you. It's going to be split down the middle of a bunch of cops saying, I'll do whatever I'm told by my boss, and a bunch of other cops saying, I'll do what the Constitution mandates. So when Virginia tried to pass these laws that would seize guns, the sheriffs were like, not on my watch. But then a bunch of other places, they're like, I'll just arrest you and charge you with a felony. I don't care what the Constitution says. There's a lot of cops who don't care about doing what's right. They care about having a job. I mean, you look at Chicago. This is actually really funny. When I was reading about the launching of these new units, they talked about on Fox 32 disbanding one of their units because it had been engaging in robberies and home invasions. So like those cops right away are like mob cops.
Sure.
Those are like the worst of the worst.
Yeah. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. I'm not saying that there's cops out there that won't fall in line, that won't go, okay, we're going to follow the president, who is the top dog as far as who runs the, like, that.
He doesn't run the states, and he doesn't run the local departments.
Good point. But
they're going to ask their boss what to do. And what you also got to understand is that there are people who don't know anything about what's going on. And so you'll meet a cop and you'll ask them, like, how do you feel about what's going on? And they'll be like, I don't know, man, these riots are crazy. Yet they'll still gladly arrest you for a felony charge for carrying a weapon in one of these states. They call one of the 7 evil states, I guess, that have these ridiculous restrictive laws that fly in the face of the Second Amendment. There's arguments about what it means to be able to bear arms, but New Jersey literally doesn't allow you to bear arms.
Well, they do, but you got to jump through.
No, you can't.
A bunch of hoops.
No, you can't.
Oh, not at all. You can't.
Not at all in New Jersey. You can only, so the argument is that you're allowed to bear arms if, well, no, actually, no, you're literally not allowed to, period.
Really?
The weapon's got to be secured, separated from ammunition in its case, and you can only drive it to and from a range or hunting. So they argue, but you can hunt, that means you're bearing, right? That's not, so as long as you, no, the point, like ultimately the point is, when we see cops go and arrest gym owners in a small suburb because they wanted to have a few people exercising at their gym, like, that is the most insane thing I've ever heard.
That's why I don't want to be in this state anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in any blue state.
So here's the issue. If we've heard from a ton of people when we talk about standing up, they say, you don't understand. I have kids. I have to feed my family. If Trump said he was invoking Directive 51 to secure the election because a war is about to break out and we can't have infighting and chaos.
Yeah.
And then the governor of this state told these officers, you must. Do you think they're going to be like, well, this is the one time I'm going to say I don't care about my family? No, they're going to say, I can't move. I don't have the money. I need food, and I'll do what I can to get food. You take a look at places like Venezuela, where the military literally fire live ammo at teenagers because they're like, if I don't, I can't feed my family. So it's better to be on the side of the government who guarantees me food than to fight with the people who would create a better government, which would give everyone food. You know what I mean? I'm saying that we have no guarantees about what will happen. And there's a good reason to believe that people would split in various factions and we have no idea who would be on whose side. But to assume that people would just be like, there's the president, let's go for it, is just, I don't think there's any evidence for that. In fact, there's evidence to the contrary.
Reclaiming my time?
Yes.
Reclaiming my, excuse me, Tim.
Yeah.
I'm reclaiming my time now. Okay.
Take it away.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm reclaiming my time. This is my time. My time is very limited. All right. So I'm going to reclaim it. Now, look, I don't have anything. I just wanted to reclaim my time.
Let's talk about Patreon.
Yes, since we've
actually, I do. I'm
fun.
going to mention one more thing. Someone sent me this in context to Directive 51. It's called Rex 84. It's got a Wikipedia entry,
really
and
short.
I'm going to give it that much. Okay, I'm not saying it's true, but it's on Wikipedia. Sure, Wikipedia is supposed to be at least somewhat of a decent information aggregator.
Okay.
A Rex 84 is short for Readiness Exercise 1984, was a classified scenario and drill developed by the United States federal government to detain large numbers of U.S. citizens deemed to be national security threats in the event the president declared a national emergency. The plan was first revealed in detail in a major daily newspaper by reporter Alfonso Chardi in the July 5th, 1987 edition of the Miami Herald. Possible reasons for such a roundup were reported to be widespread opposition to a U.S. military invasion abroad, such as if the U.S. were to directly invade Central America. To combat what the government perceived as subversive activities, the plan also authorized the military to direct ordered movements of civilian populations at state and regional levels, according to Professor Diana Reynolds. Existence of a master military contingency plan, of which Rex 84 was a part, Garden Plot, and similar earlier exercise, Lantern Spike, were originally revealed by journalist Ron Ridenhour, who summarized his findings in an article in Counterspy. They go on to say that contingency plans by the U.S. government for rounding up people perceived by the government to be subversive or a threat to civil order have existed for many decades. For example, from 1967 to 1971, the FBI kept a list of over 100,000 people to be rounded up as subversives, dubbed the Addicts List.
My.
This is also on Wikipedia, too.
Yeah.
This is how you get conspiracy theorists, because the government has plans for this stuff.
Yeah.
I remember, 15 years ago, Alex Jones ranting about the FEMA facilities that are prepared to take in a bunch of subversives and stuff. I don't know a whole lot about it. I just knew the guy used to rant about it all the time.
Okay.
These could be, I don't know what their sources for this. Maybe nobody maintains these. What is this? The Norton Company. What are their sources on all this stuff? The Intercept. Okay, well, the Intercept is real. Rex 84. What's their source for this? I don't know what that is. Archive. What's their first source? Wow, they have 3 sources.
Well, so that's old school.
South End Press. South End Press.
That's how it used to be, right?
Better than most journalists.
So this, my fear about this kind of stuff, and even with Directive 51, there was wording in both of them that said the federal government, and in Directive 51, the president can enact it, but then the Congress can enact it also, and kind of check the other one. Right?
In 51?
Yeah, didn't
in 51 it says no, the National Emergencies Act.
Oh, okay. It was a different act.
Yeah.
But it's basically the same thing, but for Congress instead of the executive branch. Okay.
Except if the president declared that he was the coordinator above all branches, then they're going to be like, no, you're not. We have the power. And he's going to say, no, you're not. I have the power. And the executive branch is the branch that actually deals with going after, enforcing laws and things like this. So if there were people loyal to Trump, they'd be like, okay. This is the important factor, man. Matt Taibbi wrote about this, the counting heads phase. And a scenario he describes is you'll see 2 black cars speeding as fast as possible through Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
They'll both crash, and then people jump out, run full speed to the D.C. Police Bureau and yell at the cop, arrest this man, to the other guy.
Yeah.
And that's when the authority is challenged. The police are going to be like, and eventually they're going to have to choose who they're going to actually arrest.
This is sounding an awful lot like TinfoWars.
But these things are real. I'm not talking about, this is Matt Taibbi's writing.
Yeah, okay.
Here's the thing.
No, I get what you're saying, though.
What people need to realize is that it's one thing when everything's calm and normal to be screaming about aliens and all this other stuff. It's another thing when we're experiencing an economic shutdown, 130 some odd days, massive economic collapse, potential war with another country. We are in unprecedented times.
Yes, we are.
At this point, to speculate as to whether or not the president will declare a national emergency to enact emergency executive authority is not outside of the realm of possibility.
I agree.
In fact, I would argue it's very likely.
Well, especially when his direct opponent also is. I don't know if can we even talk. I mean, the whole Obamagate thing is it's pretty insane with the actual proof that they have of them colluding to bring him down.
Bill Barr has just said he will not wait until after the election to reveal the Durham report, the investigation.
And there's 2 people investigating the whole thing, too.
Right. It's very possible that in October, Durham releases or maybe even September, releases his report, and it says Obama was involved, Biden was involved, these are criminal actions, there's going to be indictments, all of this crazy stuff, which triggers a massive wave, riots, whatever, who knows, maybe not. It's also possible the Durham investigation says, you know what, nothing happened.
Yeah,
I really don't think so, considering the confirmed reporting that's come out. But maybe.
Well, I mean, I still hold to the fact that I think Biden's going to retire at the end of August. I think the DNC is going to, because it's not over yet. Once there's a day or 2 left, they're going to be like, well, Biden is actually slipping. You all see, he's an old guy. We're gonna have to let him go, and he's going to retire. So, good on you. Thanks for holding the place while while this country has been ravaged. Thanks.
I want to make one very important point. Over the past almost 4 years, wow, longer than 4 years, man. When the start of the Russia allegations against Trump, in 2015, I think it was. Mm-hmm. The mainstream media has been telling us that our president was secretly colluding with Russia to subvert our government. That is one of the most insane things I have ever heard. Going so far as MSNBC actually hosted a guy who said Trump may have been, a Russian asset, he believes, since 1984.
Wow.
Well, but he was like, maybe not. But it's like, why would you even entertain? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, maybe not. Wait, what?
Now,
either you have proof or you don't. Saying something like that's insanity.
So let's
especially when they've proved that all of this is BS. Go ahead.
Let's weigh the conspiratorialness of the claims. Donald Trump, according to Jonathan Chait, he believes was an asset of the Russian government since the 1980s. Very conspiratorial. The president may enact a national security provision to defend the country because we've had mass death and economic collapse. Okay, that's not a conspiracy. That's just, will he do it or won't he?
Right.
He can.
Because it's actually an order that Bush put into play.
Whether or not it's constitutional. Right. And there have been others, and apparently a bunch of the information pertaining to Directive 51 is secret. You can't read it. So it references annexes, refer to these annexes, and then it's but those are confidential. You won't know. Yep. And I'm not surprised because it's supposed to preserve the country.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. If you want to catch the full show, tune in to this channel, subscribe, hit the like button, or check us out on iTunes and Spotify. And we will soon have this podcast up for free on all podcast platforms. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all in the next episode.